It's been a couple weeks since we've checked on the mason bee hives, and so today is the day that we are going to drive around the city and see how these habitats have done. So whenever we were making the containers, we made sure to spray paint around the whole container really dark, so that way it would block out all of the sunlight. That's important so that the bees see the tiny hole that we cut out, so that way they can fly through that to find the exit. Since these bees have been developing inside their cocoon all winter, it's important that they use as little bit of energy as possible to escape that enclosure so they can go start pollinating and creating a food source for themselves. If they're trapped inside the container for too long, they're going to expend their energy and not have enough energy to start getting to their first queen.
Since this container had the most amount of sunlight, let's check to see if all of the mason bees were able to find the exit. So looking through the container, I don't see any mason bees that are outside of the cocoons, but now I'm going to check each one to make sure they have an exit hole, much like the post-it here.
So another aspect that's important is for the cocoons to not be overlapping each other. If we would have put too many bees into each one container, they would have stacked on each other so that if one of these mason bees hatched, they wouldn't be able to get out of a...
So count as I'm picking up how many cocoons have yet to hatch. This will be your data point in comparing the container's designs. Any that still need more time to hatch are placed beside the habitat for later.
If you remember, the reason that we took the cocoons out in the first place was to rinse off any parasites and make sure that all of them could hatch. If we keep them inside their tubes, the females are laid in the back of the tubes and the males are laid towards the front. So as they hatch out in order, the males will always hatch out first, then the females. However, if there's a problem and one of these cocoons or bees don't develop properly, it then plugs up all the bees behind them. The last aspect that we're going to look for today is to make sure that our containers stay together. If you remember, all of them had a lid and a base, and depending on how we set them up, we either staple gunned the lid to a habitat or we staple gunned the base. And so what's important is that those two stayed together so that way all the cocoons were able to release successfully. If any of our containers have broken or they opened before we're going to visit them today, that could have formed a problem with the hatching of the cocoons, or maybe it just made the container where we can't use it again. So let's go check them out.
So you remember this was the first container that we installed last time? Look how beautiful it looked. But this time when we found it, it was quite a disaster. The top was missing, but once we checked all of the cocoons, they were actually all released. So we removed it and headed to Hilltop. Same as at UWT, we had chosen 2 locations to release our mason bees. This first one was a hanging site where it was loose to blow in the wind. And what I noticed was that several of the paper tubes, but none of the wooden tubes, had been filled by our bees. Once we cracked open to check how the cocoons were doing, the lid got pretty destroyed from the staples, but successfully all but 2 mason bees were released. You can see the rest of them have openings and so have started to pollinate and reproduce. This lid was totally done for though. I decided to try to hang out for a second because I could actually see the mason bees landing. At this site though, I didn't see any mason bees flying around the habitat. The cocoons looked great, there was an even layer so there weren't too many and all of them had been released, but you spot the problem? This one didn't have a back, so since there were openings to the back of the habitat, the mason bees could not start laying their eggs. So our final tips are to make sure that you keep your mason bees in the refrigerator until you're ready to release them to the city. This maintains their temperature so they don't start to hatch, and you can make sure that there's not too much humidity getting them to mold. Check and make sure that there's no parasites living on them, and then once you're ready to release them throughout the city, make sure your structure has a strong lid and base. They're not too layered and they can easily find the sunlight.
Next time you want to release mason bees on your property, I hope you feel confident in designing your own mason bee cocoon enclosure and having a successful dispersal of your new mason.